ladies and gentlemen, the day has finally arrived. We have the all-new M1 Pro 14-inch MacBook Pro in the studio, and let me just tell you all, it's no secret, these new MacBook Pros hands down are the best laptops currently on the market. The PC and computer world were already blown away and astonished at the performance standards the M1 chip already set. The bar was seriously high. Like for real, the M1 chip when it was released was leagues ahead of the rest of the competition, and now Apple went above and beyond with this all-new redesign. Guys, I'm beyond stoked for this review. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but man, the enthusiasm for these new gen MacBook Pros is simply at an all-time high. Ever since Apple ditched Intel, they have done some phenomenal things with their in-house SoC, or system on a chip in other words, for my non-tech nerds. It would be impossible to fit everything I have to say about the new MacBook Pros in a single video. I'm simply blown away. In today's video, we're going to go over a quick unboxing and compare the external differences between the 13-inch M1 Pro versus the all-new redesigned 14-inch MacBook Pro. This time around, we're purposely not going to feature any benchmarks. Instead, I'm going to have a more in-depth head-to-head comparison in terms of performance for the 13-inch versus 14-inch in a dedicated video that I'm set to release later on, so make sure to stay tuned for that. As a matter of fact, I have ordered a total of 4 MacBook models for the new Pro line just to pit them up head-to-head so you guys can make a more informed decision. Before, configuring your MacBook was already really hard, and now Apple has made it even harder. There's now different chipsets, so do you choose the M1 Pro or the M1 Max? How much RAM do you need? How about graphics? What GPU option should you choose? Well, no worries, I'll also be releasing a MacBook buying guide for the hundreds, if not thousands of people who will inevitably have the difficult decision of deciding which configuration is right for them, especially when dropping at a minimum around $2,000 USD. I invite you guys to hit that red subscribe button as there's so much MacBook Pro content I'll be releasing here in the near future. I sincerely hope my videos help you out in choosing the MacBook that's right for you, but without further ado, like I said, let's hop into a quick unboxing and then see what all is new on this newly redesigned MacBook Pro 14-inch. You ready? Of course you are. Let's do this. All right, what do we have here? Ladies and gents, I think this is the all-new 14-inch MacBook Pro if I'm not mistaken. That's right, the newly redesigned 14-inch MacBook Pro that had tech lovers salivating and reviewers blown away. I remember watching the event and thinking, wow, is this Apple we're talking about? Apple retracted on a lot of changes they had previously implemented, including the removal of most, if not all, of the important ports, all but USB-C, and now have brought a ton of them back, much to the delight of many, myself included. We'll go over all the ports in just a minute, but as you can see, we have our white iconic Apple box that houses our all-new very powerful laptop. On the front of the box is an image of our new MacBook Pro with that red new wallpaper, and on the sides we have color-matched MacBook Pro branding, as well as Apple logos on the top and bottom, and on the back is our serial number information. The new MacBook Pros don't feature the newer tamper-proof tab redesign and still feature the older style tabs. So simply pull on the tab to remove the plastic film, open the lid, and right away you'll be in shock as you stare at the cold aluminum wrapped inside that frosted plastic. Upon initially picking it up, you will notice a noticeable weight and size increase. It for sure has a larger and thicker profile as compared to the previous 13-inch, but we'll set that off to the side for just a second as we dive deeper into the rest of the contents of our box. As is customary, we have our literature packet titled Designed by Apple in California, which houses a quick start guide in case this is your first ever MacBook, a warranty and information guide, and the most important part of the unboxing, 2 large and color matched Apple stickers. After that is where things begin to get a little more interesting. If you opt to get the base $19.99 model, you will receive a 67-watt power adapter that does not support fast charging, which if you think about it is kind of odd considering how much money you're forking over. At the time of purchase, you can configure your charging brick up to a 96-watt adapter for $20 extra, which I highly recommend. Or you have 2 options: simply opt for the higher tier configurations, or choose any new MacBook Pro with the M1 Max to receive the charging brick that enables you with that juicy 30-minute quick charge. In my case, I got a mid-tier model M1 Pro 14-inch, so I, by default, get the 96-watt charger in the box instead of the lower-rated 67-watt. Again, odd Apple wouldn't include the 96-watt charger as standard across any redesigned Pro, but anyway. Lastly, there's our all-new braided USB-C to MagSafe 3 charging cable. And let me just tell you, what a welcome addition. I love that MagSafe is back. Now the magnets found inside the charger easily guide the charger into the ports so that your MacBook can refuel and recharge. And the magnetic connection is strong enough to resist most unwanted disconnects. But in the unfortunate event someone trips on the cable while the MacBook is charging, it'll just release the magnetic connection so that your MacBook isn't pulled off a table and risk a detrimental drop. And now, heading back to the star of the show, remove the frosted plastic shrouding the device that protects it during shipment, open the lid, and like magic, it knows to be powered on to greet you for the first ever time. But before that, you'll notice another film of frosted plastic on the screen to protect it from scratches. So remove that and you're ready to set up your brand new machine. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, give it up for the all-new MacBook Pro 14-inch. So now, let's go over a quick tour of this all-new machine and also have the 13-inch M1 Pro right here next to it to compare and contrast. Man, we got a lot going on here. Let's first start with one of the biggest and most noticeable changes. Our all new and bigger screen that is now a 14.2 inch liquid retina XDR display with ProMotion. When I say this all new display is buttery smooth, man, it's about damn time is all I gotta say. The new display now features mini LED technology, so colors stand out even more, and the display itself appears crisper than ever. The Liquid Retina XDR display has a screen resolution of 3024 by 1964 pixels with an adaptive refresh rate of up to 120 Hz, and simply cannot be replicated on camera. If any of you have the new iPad Pros or the new iPhone 13 Pro models, you'll know what I mean when I tell you the refresh rate is buttery smooth, as it is a joy to work on such an excellent display. Not only that, but now the new 14-inch MacBook Pro now has a higher peak brightness, actually doubling the previous M1's max brightness at up to 1000 nits of sustained brightness, and goes up to an astonishing 1600 nits peak brightness when mostly working on HDR content. You may have also noticed already, so let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Yes, the new 14-inch MacBook Pro features a notch, and initially, when it was unveiled, I thought it was the stupidest thing in the world. Like, why does it need a notch when Face ID isn't even present? Well, obviously, I'm not on the design team, so I have no say in this, but I will say that after 2 hours with the new MacBook, the notch literally became irrelevant and isn't a big deal whatsoever. But the almighty question the whole world is wondering: what happens when you hover the mouse over and onto the notch? Does the cursor disappear into the notch, or will the cursor act as a wall, and will the cursor stop there? What do you think? Actually, it just goes right through. Pretty cool. But yeah, why the notch? Beats me, but thankfully we finally feature a more improved camera, now being a still pretty weak sauce 1080p FaceTime HD camera. You'd think for a Pro device we should have seen a way better webcam, but I suppose this will do, especially when coming from the potato-like 720p camera that is still featured on the M1 13-inch Pro. Additionally, notice how much smaller the bezels look on the new 14-inch, especially at the top. It makes the display look even more immersive, especially with that impressive 1000 nit max brightness. Below the screen, the MacBook Pro branding is now absent as compared to the 13-inch M1 Pro. The other biggest, most obvious difference on the new generation is this all-new keyboard that appears to have this black inlay behind it. The new black frame was designed in a way to emphasize the backlit keys, and I personally think it looks extremely slick. For those of you that remember, Apple finally came to their senses and shifted back to the scissor switches in 2019 from the ultra low travel and super controversial butterfly switch keyboards from years past. So rest assured, these scissor style keys are just as tactile and as responsive as the previous M1 13-inch Pro. You'll also thankfully notice the addition of full height function keys that now replace the touch bar, and might I say, thank you Apple. The previous touch bar, at least in my opinion, was a total gimmick and served very little practical uses. Sure, it was kind of cool to scroll through the different emojis on the little OLED strip, but realistically, and especially for true professionals, it just wasn't productive or useful, and having physical function keys is much preferred. You'll notice all the way at the top right of the keyboard is your Touch ID sensor. This time it follows the same design as the other keys, instead of it just being a small square like it is on the 13-inch M1. Use Touch ID to easily unlock your Mac and make purchases using Apple Pay on sites that support it. Flanking our keyboard on both sides are the newly redesigned speaker system that now boasts up to 80% more bass. The speakers here are truly amazing, and it'd be near impossible to try to replicate the immersive sound through my camera's microphone. If you have a chance and have an Apple store nearby, definitely go check out the new speaker system because it's pretty gnarly, not even gonna lie. The studio-like microphones, as Apple calls them, inside the MacBook Pros have again been improved with up to 60% lower noise floor so that your voice is always crystal clear and at the forefront. Then we have to talk about the new I/O, and what can I say? Once again, thank you so much Apple. Jesus, it took them long enough. Now the MacBook Pro is worthy of the Pro moniker, with it now featuring an HDMI port, one Thunderbolt 4 port on the right hand side, and an SD card slot. This is huge, as now I can finally ditch all my dongles. Before, Apple for some reason thought it would be a spectacular idea to remove all these ports and nickel and dime us to death with these dongles, and it's just absurd to me that we paid so much money before for the Intel Pros just to have to fork over even more cash to fully take advantage of the hardware. This is obviously a step in the right direction, and on the left hand side, don't worry, I didn't forget, we feature our MagSafe 3 connector, 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, and a headphone jack that actually is a little more special than your standard headphone port. Apparently, for those audiophiles that rely on the best quality wired headphones money can buy, the new 14-inch and 16-inch Pros now support high impedance headphones. This will only apply to a small percentage of people, but it's really cool that Apple is taking professionals seriously, especially those creative individuals who rely on their MacBooks for music production or anything that requires crystal clear audio. And flipping the machine upside down, we can see we have 4 larger rubber feet to stabilize the computer and hold it in place while laying it flat on a table. And also, you'll see MacBook Pro branding etched into the middle right at the center, which I think is a subtle but really neat touch. And finally, the sizable increase in thickness and the overall package of the MacBook has grown from the previous generation. But in all honesty, the weight and thickness do not faze me one bit. I'd much prefer an extra centimeter or 2 of thickness if it means we get back all of our ports and a noticeable increase to battery life, which, speaking of, thanks to the power and efficiency improvements the M1 Pro and M1 Max have to offer, and combining it with the fact that these computers are now a little thicker means more room for a larger physical battery and efficiency improvements through the chipset. The 14-inch can power you through the entire day, no matter what you have to throw at it, and officially sports an integrated 70-watt lithium polymer battery that Apple claims should last you up to 17 hours of juice. Pretty impressive if you ask me, but obviously the more demanding tasks you throw at it, that battery life should go down at least slightly. That means that for the average user, this thing will easily power you through your entire day without needing a charger. For those that have been long-time viewers of my channel, you better believe I'll be releasing a MacBook battery drain test very soon. So make sure to hit that red subscribe button with bell so that you don't miss it. I know many of you guys, that's one of the main things you look out for when buying a new MacBook. How good is that battery life? Especially for a lot of students that are always and continuously on the go. You'll notice that for this video, I showed no benchmarks, and that's because if I did, this video would be 30 minutes plus. So instead, I'll be making several, not just one, but several videos comparing different MacBook Pro models so you guys make a more informed decision, because trust me, choosing your configuration is no easy task. Expect a ton of comparisons, like for example, how does the previous fully spec'd Intel 16-inch MacBook Pro compare against the base 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro chip? What about against the MacDaddy 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro? All of that and more is soon to come. But before I end this video, there's a few other notable improvements that I think are noteworthy, such as the 14-inch in effect can now be fully spec'd to match the 16-inch. What do I mean by that? Before, the 16-inch got some special treatment and offered higher configuration options that weren't available on the 14-inch, but not anymore. Now you can fully spec a 14-inch Pro to match the highest specifications available. So basically, you'll now just have to decide which size you want. This does mean, though, that a fully spec'd 14-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Max and the highest storage and the highest RAM will set you back more than $6,000 after tax. Pretty crazy. Another thing, the 14-inch and 16-inch can now be configured up to a whopping 8 terabytes of memory, which is now even faster. Apple's SSDs have traditionally been known to be blazing fast, and now Apple one-upped themselves with read speeds as fast as 7.4 gigabytes a second. That's gigabytes. The internal thermal systems have also been tweaked to allow air to flow better, now up to 50% greater airflow, so the machine is able to breathe. But given how powerful these chips are, the fan should rarely ever crank up when doing your normal everyday tasks. Guys, we went over a lot, but that's because I'm simply so stoked for these new machines. This has to be one of Apple's greatest upgrades to date. There's a plethora of welcome improvements that truly make this a pro device. ProMotion, speedy SSDs, gargantuan performance gains thanks to the all-new chipsets, and of course, a whole new redesign with thinner bezels, several display improvements, more I/O, and a bigger battery. What else could you ask for? There you have it. It's my unboxing for the 14-inch MacBook Pro, as well as a quick hands-on on everything that's new. Again, benchmarks and performance tests were purposely skipped, and you can expect the first performance test video to drop towards the middle of the week, so keep your eyes peeled. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on the all-new MacBook Pros. As you can tell, I am blown away, but would like to hear you guys' opinions, especially when dropping a tremendous amount of money for these all-new, very powerful computers. 16-inch unboxing should follow this one, so with that being said, I'm clocking out for now, but I cannot wait to catch you all in my next video.